concentrarsi sulle questioni essenziali.
On the essential issues. We must continue to strive for peace in Ukraine, and I want to say this truly on a personal note. In these harsh days of the winter war, we are increasing our aid to Kiev, to Ukraine, especially regarding energy supplies, but we also support negotiations, and we are in constant exchange with him. United Europe and a strong NATO. In this eventful week, we have been in touch almost every day on how to handle the difficult issue of Greenland and Denmark, and together with Emmanuel Macron, Donald Tusk, and other European neighbors, we have jointly affirmed that Europe must do more for Arctic security in the common transatlantic interest. Germany will strengthen its commitment, and Italy has just adopted, many of you will know, it has adopted a new strategy for water, to which we can substantially adhere. Denmark and the population of Greenland can count on our solidarity based on sovereignty and territorial integrity. We intend to support the talks between Denmark, Greenland, and the United States, if this becomes necessary, and this will be possible only by mutual agreement. During yesterday's European Council, we therefore decided that it is important to react firmly, and we have a very clear compass in a new era of great powers. Europe must be sovereign and steadfast. We want to protect NATO within us, in Europe. We know how precious the trust upon which NATO is based is. We know that this trust is the decisive competitive advantage for the United States of America in the world as well.
Frau Ministerpräsidentin, Herr Bundeskanzler, eine Frage an Sie.
President, you naturally spoke precisely about the Mercosur agreements regarding the fact of putting them into practice. It has been said that not everything is always democratic, so at this point, they will be put into practice, they will enter. They will come into force, and therefore you're the Chancellor's primary partner in Europe, acting almost as a substitute, so to speak, for the French president, although there are sometimes divergences.
Well
then, regarding Mercosur, look, I stand by the work Italy has done to, make the agreement more balanced. We believe that the agreement contained imbalances, particularly towards certain sectors, notably towards the agricultural sector. We worked very closely with the Commission. We brought home, thanks to the willingness of the Commission but also of the partners, some very important answers to, let's say, reassure and defend a fundamental asset of the European economy, which is precisely agriculture. At that point, for us, the agreement became balanced, and as you know, Italy gave the green light for the signing of the Mercosur agreement. After that, there was an intervention by the Parliament, which you saw, that could, let's say, postpone its entry into force by at least a year and a half, up to, I believe, 2 years. Therefore, the Commission is evaluating whether to bring it into force temporarily, but that is a competence of the Commission. What I can say is that today Italy considers the agreement a balanced one, and that having guaranteed that balance can allow Mercosur allow free trade with the Mercosur nations to unleash all its positive effects. Having said that, regarding the second part of the question, and jokes aside, let's say, I never interpret politics in this way. I believe that Italy represents a fundamental nation within Europe. I believe that Italy is demonstrating today, on the international stage and in Europe, its stability, its strength, its pragmatism, and also its courage in raising issues that are right for the future of the continent, even when raising them might seem inconvenient. And I think that in doing so, it is, let's say, earning respect and greater respect among its interlocutors. And I try to do my part. I am not interested in replacing anyone. I am interested in the great nations of Europe being able to dialogue on the major challenges Europe faces, because unfortunately, allow me to say, we are not in a historical era where we can afford childishness in reading foreign policy. The phase is a delicate, complex, and in some ways grave one. It needs adequate responses. To do this, we must, let's say, deal with serious and profound issues and not, let's say, simplifications. That is all.
Regarding Mercosur, I would have an observation. The Mercosur agreement, this is what it was about. Attempts have been made to implement it for 25 years, and it has been signed. And I regret that the European Parliament last Wednesday, precisely at a moment when the world expects the European Union to be able to act, took this decision. But let's say that at this point, it is a matter of a request for verification by a court regarding precisely its compliance with European law. For some, this was also the motive to prevent this treaty, but the legitimacy of this agreement is beyond doubt. It concerns a decision taken by a qualified majority of the Council of Ministers, and therefore also by all the representatives who are necessarily present. Therefore, at this point there was, as was said, Also this fact involving the gratitude I express now to Giorgia Meloni as well regarding this debate that took place, especially the intervention by Italy, because I would truly like to thank Italy expressly. I wanted to ask a question to both of you because a debate is underway in the United States, I don't know if you followed it, regarding Trump's state of health, his mental state. There are those who have cast out, even let's say, American lawmakers, and recently Trump revealed private messages from European leaders, like Macron. He mimicked them to mock them publicly. Macron wrote to the Norwegian Prime Minister because, since they didn't give him the Nobel Peace Prize, he is no longer interested in peace, he said it himself. And we have also seen how he has changed his mind multiple times from one day to the next. The question I am asking is this. In your opinion, is Donald Trump's capability still to be trusted, or is he not becoming a problem for global security? And do you agree with giving him the Nobel Peace Prize, given that it's the thing that seems to interest him the most? Thank you.
Look, frankly, this doesn't strike me as a serious way to approach international politics. Donald Trump, the President of the United States. I heard these exact same arguments being made about Joe Biden before him. I've even heard them made about myself, when at one point I had to be absent for 5 days because I wasn't feeling well. Will Giorgia Meloni be capable of leading her country? I believe we must reckon with democracy and with leaders who are elected and chosen by their own citizens, with whom we, let's say, interface because, thank God, it isn't up to us to choose who governs other nations. Having said that, regarding the Nobel Peace Prize, I hope that one day we will be able to award a Nobel Peace Prize to Donald Trump, and I trust that he will make a difference regarding a just and lasting peace for Ukraine, including for Ukraine. And so, finally, we too could nominate Donald Trump for the Nobel Peace Prize.
I couldn't have answered better than Giorgia Meloni just did. Good evening. Thank you. So from the European perspective of NATO, we shouldn't just do more to defend ourselves for our defense, and we decided this in The Hague as well during the summit specifically regarding NATO. First of all, we must simplify all our systems. We build in a way that is too complex and complicated. Then we have too many systems that run in parallel and that have been developed and paid for in parallel to one another, so we truly need mutual support. If we orient ourselves along these 3 guidelines, so simplification, actually I'll say it in English, simplification. Reducing the number and then naturally also a number. A sort of scaling, a scaled number in this sense. At this point we could reach much more reasonable budgets. So to be much simpler, we should naturally cooperate regarding our defense industry in such a way as to be effective and efficient and have a defense that is as broad as possible, thanks precisely to the contributions we can make available at a common level, because we aren't directing ourselves against NATO states, but against threats coming from the outside, such as, for example, cyber activities, misinformation, fallacies, etc.
Regarding the Peace Board, I also reiterate what I have already said. Italy's position is a position of availability, of interest towards the initiative. I believe that, firstly, it is clear to everyone that Italy, but I believe Germany as well, can play a leading role in the stabilization of the Middle East. And I think the work, let's say, that is needed to consolidate a complex and fragile truce and transform it into a long-term solution leading up to the 2-state proposal requires our involvement. And so we have a position of openness, of willingness. That said, there are objectively problems with how the initiative has been configured, which for us are actually of a constitutional nature. As of today, let's say, the charter sent to us would be unconstitutional and therefore incompatible with our legal system. I think we must, and this is what I communicated to the President of the United States, to the Americans, asking if there was also a willingness to reopen, let's say, this configuration to meet the needs that are not only Italian but also those of other European countries, and I believe we should attempt to do this work. I think the choice to exclude oneself a priori is never the best one. I always think that in a time like this, the presence of countries like ours can make a difference, and so this is, let's say, our current position. Then we will see what margins exist to find shared solutions.
So first of all, regarding the Peace Council, a few weeks ago I already told President Trump that I would personally be willing to join the Peace Council if it is a body that is, as was initially planned, one that accompanies the peace process in Gaza, even in a second phase which, unfortunately, has not yet begun. To disarm Hamas as is being done now, the Peace Council, given its governance structures, we cannot accept it for reasons of constitutional law specifically. But certainly, we are willing to discuss new forms of cooperation with the United States of America, if it means ensuring we find a new format that somehow guarantees and brings peace closer in various regions of the world. So Gaza, the Middle East, Ukraine.